Good morning, podcast listeners. Happy Wednesday. Today I have a slightly different topic, getting outside of the self and kind of into a more maybe sociological slash group slash population sort of topic, and that's culture. But not culture in the way that we normally think about it. Culture in the way that organizations and groups of people can optimally perform within each other. And what are the characteristics that allow organizations to be the best and allow organizations to perform at the highest level and to continue to grow at rates that other organizations simply cannot? So what are those characteristics that allow organizations at the base of themselves to be successful? And what allow them to continue to develop and innovate and be the best? Especially recently, you look at the two ends of the spectrum. You see Toys R Us finally goes bankrupt and is out of business. And you see a company like Amazon buying Whole Foods. And when Amazon was started, Whole Foods was worth $100 million plus. So it's very interesting to see what factors come down to psychologically and the mentality of the company and the ins and outs of it that allow companies as well as other organizations to be successful and to continue to innovate and to create a certain permanence that allow them to consistently be there and consistently be the highest performer. And with all my studies and my research and conversations I've had with other people, kind of come to a realization and have been brought to the realization that it really requires both top-down and bottom-up consistency and understanding amongst really all employees and all people or workers or all people involved within that organization. There needs to be an underlying what people call culture, or what I would like to call a system of values or a network of values and principles and philosophies that permit an organization to be successful and have a network and a framework in which they can make decisions and move forward and progress. So you take a company like Amazon, or for me, my favorite example is FC Barcelona, when their La Masia Academy was pumping out talent more than any other club in Europe. And what were those defining principles that came down to? Well, they had some. That's the key thing. If you want your organization to be extremely successful, and if you want your organization to be the best, it's going to have to come down to developing a tradition of improvement and a tradition of growth and development that allow that organization to continue to grow and have a framework off of which it can make decisions and a framework off of which it can find success and be successful. And for me, one of the most important things that there is having basically a tradition of improvement and a tradition of success and a tradition of not being traditional. Because as I've talked about in my previous two podcasts, not being normal often can lead to success in the long term, and success that normal people, and in this case normal organizations, can achieve. So what is it about organizations that aren't normal and have key philosophies and key values that they've developed and put in stone? Well, the people at the top understand what those are and understand how they influence decisions, and then those values and philosophies are brought all the way down to the bottom and contribute to how the bottom decides and the things that influence the bottom and what the bottom thinks and how deep of an understanding they have of those core philosophies and those core values and why they influence the decisions that are made and the reasons behind them. And having an understanding of those values and philosophies throughout an entire organization is key. And being able to understand that everyone within the organization needs to have those principles and needs to understand those principles and understand how they influence decision making is critical. And in order to grow as a company or as an organization, you have to have those principles defined. And as you can see, with organizations that have those values and have those philosophies and have those cultures defined, they're able to better grow, and they're able to make better decisions more efficiently, and they're able to continue developing, whereas other organizations who really don't have those core philosophies of innovation and those core philosophies and values of growth and development, when those are not there, there's really a huge issue, and it can lead to becoming static and becoming complacent and not innovating in both times of success and failure. So really, an organization is basically a macrocosm of an individual. If an individual is going to be successful, if an individual is going to be one of the best at what they do, it's often going to come down to that individual having core philosophies and values and understanding how those philosophies and values influence the decisions that they make. And you basically blow that up on a macro level to what an organization looks like and what an organization does. It comes down to that. The organization itself and all of its components understand the values and philosophies and the processes that create that framework for decision making and create that framework for their goals going forward and how they're going to achieve them and why. And when those companies have a why and a reason for doing all of those things that tie back to those values and philosophies and core principles, that organization or company is going to be able to grow, is going to be able to be more successful than most other companies. And you can see that with the contrast between Amazon and Toys R Us. And you can see that between so many different examples across business, especially you take, for example, Enron, just a culture of fixed mindset, not having a culture, but a culture that was negative and didn't promote success and promoted being complacent and promoted being static and didn't promote positive behaviors of growth and learning in order to allow the organization to move forward successfully. And instead it did the opposite. It moved forward and in a way that was not positive, in the opposite of positive, an extremely negative way, which led to a huge scandal and their downfall. But then you look at a company like Amazon, and Amazon is basically the example right now of a company that is going forward and a company that is trending forward and has great tendencies and a great culture and great philosophy. And if you want to look at an organization with a why, an organization with great key values and core principles and core philosophies, that's where you turn to. And in club football, it's the same thing. You look at FC Barcelona during their heyday. You look right now at the Bayern Munich Academy. You look at AS Monaco's academy, just pumping out talent from their respective countries because of those key values and key philosophies that people at the top who create those philosophies develop, and then all the players and coaches at the bottom who create the change that needs to occur. So at the end of the day, really a strong organization with growing tendencies and optimal values and philosophies to grow, they have them established, and they know how they influence decisions and why they are the way that they are. And tying that back to it being basically a macrocosm example of a person, if an individual has core values, philosophies, and principles, then it's clear that that person is going to be able to be successful because they have a framework to make decisions and an understanding of its purpose. And when organizations have those things as well, they're able to grow and be the best, and they're able to reach levels that other organizations without those things do not have. So I really hope this was an interesting chat for you guys. It's been something I've thought a lot about over the past couple of years, and I've given a lot of thought to it. And I really think that it's a really interesting topic that when you look for a place to go work, you look for a place to find yourself and a place to really devote yourself. You're going to want to work in a place with core values and core philosophies that are oriented toward growth and positive change in the future. So I will be back at you guys tomorrow. I think my topic tomorrow is probably going to be embarrassment and failure. So I hope you guys can look forward to that one. Go crush it.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.